James, yes.
Yes, like that.
Well,
45, I think 90 is too hard for the player.
Yeah, yeah.
There we go, give me the
Yeah, I think so.
Thanks, bud.
Some sense of
So the other one
So who's looking at the screen?
we can do the play tester or no. This one will be
So the person who's using the live tracker, right?
yeah, this person is
So the person who's using to be like little cards
away from
Not us.
yeah, but I won't be in your side, so I will like probably stay here.
So basically we are like 5 positions. So we need
So let this turn this way.
Because our artists want to like show the guests that we are pushing the button. And if my back is to them, I will block the table.
It's fine.
Okay.
Dave's gonna be the one playing. So
Oh, okay, yeah.
it's okay.
Okay.
All right, team attendance.
Yeah.
Hello. Hello. It's time for some attendance. All right. Is team 76 here? Oh, yeah, you guys are prepping. Right, okay. Is team 80 here? Team 80. Are you guys missing someone? All right. Team 83. 83? Sorry. Can you repeat that? Nelson? Okay. Nelson's going to be late. All right. Team 85. Cool. Team 86. You missing 3 members? Oh, there's one. Tilly. Okay, cool.
We can actually just
Okay, next up is team 86. No, team 87. All right, team 87. You're missing one person? What?
M and Tuesday.
Cool. Yeah. All right, team 88. Cool. Awesome. Team 89. Okay, yeah, cool. And team 90. Who are you missing?
You guys can set up probably one in your room.
Sorry? One more time?
The game is not there.
All right, cool. I think we're ready, Dave.
All right, welcome to round 5 interim afternoon. We are, yeah. It's actually, it's been a very exciting day. Like the amount of cardboard and foil is very exciting. It's very BBW. It's good to see some of the physical stuff showing up. It looks like everyone's really embracing festival, which is really, really good. Mo sends his regrets. He's out today with super minor symptoms, but is doing the right thing, which is staying home. So it's just me. But it's been, like I said, the world so far has been really fun and exciting. And that's kind of the goal, is to make fun stuff. So it's really good to see everyone going for that, trying crazy things, seeing what you can do with makey and foil and tape, and all those fun things. With that, we've got the feedback link up. So as you're watching, remember to send thoughts and notes to teams. Remember, teams take notes on the feedback. But for the most part, we're going to bring the worlds up. We're going to play them. We're going to talk about them. The big goal is help you make awesome stuff for festival. So like talk through like what you want the actual installation to be like, how to get guests engaged, how to think about interest curve, but really just like what is currently fun and appealing about your worlds. With all that, I think we're ready for the first team.
All right, so first up is Team 76. Come on up.
Hello everyone, we're Team 76, and today we're going to show the process we got so far. And we have Cleo and Chen Guang for our programmer, and Yifan and Maria for our artists, and I'm Chi-Wen, I'm the producer and sound designer. And our game is a multiplayer games, so we will have our two programmers to play this side,
All right.
and yeah, and also we have a live tracker.
All right, which one should I take?
Our gameplay is currently 1 minute, so probably you can try.
You do both? So you may stand do this first?
This one is actually a bit harder, so
Okay, I'll
which one?
do this one first. All right, I'll learn. All right, so I've got two trackers. What am I doing with the trackers? Will that be apparent soon? I'll know what to do. I'm looking here. Make sure I don't occlude the trackers. There's some.
So you're avoiding obstacles.
All right.
Just one tracker will do.
All right. Do we know which one?
The index three will.
Well, we'll just see which one.
Yeah.
然后后来，
Whoa, whoa, whoa.
Oh no, they.
Careful with. Yeah.
Okay, so let's start. Oh wait, it work? Is it? Is this?
I see the same thing on the screen.
Okay, it's
Sure.
focus on the game. I'm switching. I'm used to focus. Oh yeah. The sound is not.
Time's running down.
Got it.
Can we
Okay.
start over because?
Sure. Nice.
It's harder.
All right. And oh. It's all about building anticipation. Got a little tease. Got music in my head.
Is there a way to test before the game starts?
I think that there's the small by tracker model in there, so if it's working, it should be working.
I don't see it.
Do we need to get just more visible to the base stations? There we go. Woo. Which one is it? All right. Whoa. All right, so am I dodging the food?
Yeah, dodging the food.
But it looks so good. Oh. Oh. Cool. All right, and yeah, I want to see the other side of this.
We'll probably need to restart it. So there's a start button up there.
And I'm guessing is this rhythm based?
Yeah,
All right.
but it's actually pretty hard.
Oh man. Mentally like map this out. Whoa. Yeah. What? Yeah, no. All right. Cool. I mean, the immediate, like the rainbow, the music, the food, the cute little like spaceship thing, like the visuals and the audio is like creates a nice, fun, like atmosphere. Like as we were trying to get running, like the music made me want to like get it running and start playing it. And like there's definitely some sound effects coming in there. Like I think when you hit things and miss things. But I love the aesthetic so far. It's a little like I've got some questions about what are we doing? Like why is there like why am I dodging food? Why am I throwing food at the spaceship? And there's a little bit of like based on that, like what is our relationship? Because my first reaction was, okay, like there's food coming at me. It looks like good food. I should gather it instead of like avoid it. But you give me a health bar, and when I hit the food, it takes health off of me. And so like what I'm expecting is a little bit not what the world is doing. And I guess to that end, where do you want to take this? Like what do you want the escalation of this to be?
So this is actually two people versus each other. The one on the spaceship is an alien who is trying to invade the sweet planet, who is the one who is tapping that, trying to protect the castle. And because we are kind of a rhythm-based game, so we'll probably right now it's only like when you are inside the correct range, the food will like launch and to hit the enemy, but we will add the feature that is when you push the button on beat, it will gain a boost to the food that you send out, so it'll make it harder for the other side of people to avoid that. Yeah.
Okay, and I think so. Like the idea of like I'm on the side of like a planet that is about sweets, and there's an alien. So I think you can get the relationship to make sense. I'm a defender and there's an attacker. The piece of that like I said, like the mechanics feel a little at odds with the relationship. And a big part of this is it's a rhythm game. And so if I'm actually defending my planet, the fact that my defense system is restricted to like a beat matching system feels like a really bad design for our engineers. Like who built our defense system that only lets me launch attacks when I get it on the rhythm? And so that basically a rhythm game doesn't really match the intent of, oh my God, there's an alien attacking us, let's defend ourselves. And I think it's right to be thinking about how to constrain the guest and how to make that sort of an interesting challenge. But I would question, like, does the fantasy match the mechanic? Because if I'm doing a rhythm game, it's really about being on time, like listening to the music, and sort of like being rewarded when I get in sync. And very often, like you see rhythm games, it's either a really close connection to like the power of music, like I've got strength and skills in music and I do that well, I succeed, or it's really just making music. Like you are a musician, you're a performer. And so I think finding that connection and making it clear to the guest will help, because as I watched it, I was like, I want to like use these buttons to like defend myself, but I can't. I was entirely focused on the food coming in, and I was very like, I had to ignore most of the screen and be like, I'm just rhythm game. And I think that's a disconnect. And then I think for the other guest, you can definitely dodge. It definitely feels like I want to be able to do something that represents like my goal here. And so I would wonder what is, like, there's clearly failure for the guest who's controlling the alien, but what is success for them? Like, what is them succeeding look like?
Oh yeah, so there's a little background setting we set, but we haven't put it into our game, is that the alien is actually waiting for backup. So the time constraint is for the alien. If the time runs out and the alien is not dead yet, the one on the spaceship is not dead yet, the alien win.
Okay. So I think you want to make that clear to the guest. There's a little bit of weirdness, which is, what if I get most of the way there but I die? Like, does the backup like get scared and run away? So the story definition of success is, I think, a good way to like set up the stakes. Like you can do stuff like, can you visualize like the backup is coming and like connect success to that story in a stronger way? I do think, I would wonder if there's a way to have an active thing to do. Basically dodging. Right now, this guest doesn't really control the launching of the food. Like, they're not making choices about what to launch and when, because the pattern matching is deciding that for them, right? So it's really a skill-based experience of, can you launch the stuff that's been designed? And so consequently, there isn't a lot of intent behind like the attack-defend relationship. And so as the alien, I'm dodging things that aren't really targeted at me. They're just like music patterns. And that reduces the meaning of it. And so I would wonder, is there a way, like a simplification would just be, this is a device for defending the planet. And I can launch food, and different food launches mean different things. And I'm making choices related to what the other guest is doing. And similarly, the guest over here is making choices based on what's being sent to them. And I think that's the big missing piece, is neither guest is making decisions based on the actions of the other guest. Because it doesn't matter what the guest up there is doing on my screen. I'm only watching the beat matching stuff. And then because it's not those actions aren't connected to what this guest is doing, there really doesn't feel like much consequence to what I do when dodging, because it could just be the predetermined, pre-programmed pattern from the computer, because it really is, right? In a perfect scenario, it is just the beat matching that's coming through. And so there's no like, oh, I'm over here now, come hit me. Like the world won't respond, because it can't respond. And I think that's those two moments of the guest is over there, I want to do something about it. And then the other reaction is like, oh, I moved over here and now they're targeting me here. I need to react. That feedback loop is what you really sort of need to capture. And I think the relationship you set up is really strong. Like the visuals, the idea of like, you know, a fun, weird, like food-based planet and an alien who wants to like invade is like a nice, quirky story setup. You just need to find a way to connect them. And the makey idea of like having an alien interface, like we're defense control here, is really good. Is the thought to add a prop device to the controls over here, for the tracker?
Yeah, I think so.
So we are talking about, thank you. We are talking about creating something like a spaceship. Yeah. That.
Oh, like I move my body.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, and I think that's, whew. I think then the question is like, how do you want to stage this in space? Like, in some sense, I almost want to be like face to face.
Yeah.
That's the idea.
As we originally wanted, we want the people, like two of them sit in front of each other and the screens, like the
Back to back.
Yeah, but
And I think I would like, and what I would do is, I would, at the very least, I would want, as a guest wearing the chip, I would want a large display. I think you get away with a small display for this because it kind of fits the theming, right? If I'm in a little defense thing, I'm watching what's happening. I think you could stage that well. But I think that's the other piece is like, think about like the layout and the staging. And this is really cool and physical. And I think the idea of going big with the spaceship would be really interesting. It would force you to calibrate and think about what is the spacing and how do you match that to a screen. But that could be really cool too. But yeah, great start. And some things to think about in like connecting the guests together. Good work.
All right, next up we have Team 80.
Hi, we are Team 80, and this is our artist, Jin and Echo, and this is our sound designer and producer, Wei Lingyuan, and this is our programmer, Cai Cai, and I'm another programmer and the fake producer, Hui Jie. And
We can have you both.
yeah. So our game is a racing game using wheelchair.
I mean, so one, the amount of foam and cardboard is very exciting. How do these wheels work? Do they work?
Oh, we need to use armband for
Magic. All right, I love magic.
now. Magic.
All right, so you want me to sit on one of these? Yeah. Okay, I gotcha. All right. We're going forward, okay. Do we have to go backwards at all? No. All right. It'll be fine. Everything will be fine. Oh man. Mayo armbands, yeah. Which one? Do you want left for the wheel?
No, left arm.
Yeah,
You
good.
don't have to.
Do they have to go on the skin or?
Like all the way up here.
Like on the skin? Or?
Yeah.
Okay.
Let's do this. Okay.
Two is not. Three.
Oh, this is three. Okay, so here's yours. The left arm. Oh, you got it?
Yeah, because we don't track the electric.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, you should go.
All right.
I'll be here just for decoration.
Roll up your sleeve.
We'll pretend.
It's
Oh, you're not using it yesterday.
Yeah. It looks more like high tech and dangerous if you have it on your arm itself.
Yes, sure.
Okay. Oh no! Oh.
Oh, no.
I can, ah! No!
Wait, back up. You, okay, go. You. Oh, you really got it. Yeah, really. Oh, wait, stop. Keep going. The glass door is the final.
No! Ow!
Everything's you.
All right, I'm assuming this is right now. We'll just go on forever.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's basically it.
All right. I think we got a sense of this. Let's talk about it.
Okay, sure.
Oh, sorry.
It's okay.
All right. So, I expected some sort of chariot thing at first. Actually, let me take this buzzing thing off. But man, I mean, I think it says a lot about your world that it was over and we were still playing it. Like just the chaos that this kind of creates is a big strength of what you have going on here. I love the fact that like the music sets up that it's kind of silly, right? The world knows that this is going to be messy and chaotic and difficult. And so the music, the visuals, the sound effects all reinforce and give us permission to laugh at it, which is really nice because I'm skeptical we had any real control going on here. Like it just, I was struggling to like really get feedback on is it working, but on some of it I didn't care that much because it falling apart, it breaking was fun. And like you have a really simple layout for the world, right? It's like we just have to go forward. And there's like some obstacles moving back and forth, but really just get over there. And you know, the wheel falls off, like it crashes, it explodes, all this stuff happens, and I think that chaos is really fun. You're using the Mayo armbands. So how are you taking that as input and converting it into a control for the world?
So basically, we're just taking the movement, the gyroscope speed of the arm, but it's really hard to detect if you are moving forward or you are moving backward. So basically, we're just taking all the input as moving forward. So basically, if you are rotating your arm, you are moving the wheelchair that's controlled by you.
Yeah. And so one thing I love basically the simplicity and the chaos of this. I think things falling apart like works really well. The thing I'm missing is some sense of feedback of what the controls mean. And in this situation, you have a fairly abstract input device, right? Like you are not taking the rotation of the wheels. You're not like clearly doing a button press. You're doing something that relies on me as the guest to do something mostly correct to get the data. And then you're converting it into something that is also pretty far from what I might be doing. And so in that situation, what can be really helpful is something that is giving me visual feedback. So for instance, if you gave me even just a piece of UI on the screen that was like, that filled up green with movement, and I could sort of like just get the feeling of moving my arm really makes that happen, I could then use that to like convert that into speed for my wheel, and that might be really helpful. Like, so go ahead and give me possibly a very user-centric interface. So it's not built into the visuals of like the wheel turning, but it's something that has really good feedback, like it's very responsive. And if I have that, then I can train myself to like make actions that change that. I can see when I stop, it stops. When I start, it starts. If I go fast, it might go faster. And with that, I can then map sort of like through my brain that I do this, that happens there, and then that controls the wheel. Oh yeah.
I was just gonna say, just talking to her briefly, like I was really getting it to go when I was like really getting my arm into it, but apparently she was like really just using the wrist, and that's where she like couldn't get it to go. So like it's like the whole arm.
Well, and I think that ambiguity is a result of it's a bunch of, I could do a bunch of different things with my arm, and I don't know which variable it's picking up on. And I could iterate really quickly if I had a piece of feedback, and I could discover, oh, look, I'm doing something small and nothing's happening. But right now the feedback loop is so slow because I gotta like, one, we are crossed, and I'm not sure if it's flaking out, if I'm doing the wrong action, if I am doing the right action, but just not enough. So a little piece of feedback would help a lot.
Yeah. For now, actually, our wheelchair's movement is based on the rigid body and hinge joint, and the like, rotation of this wheel. And of course, we also wanted to maybe use fidgets to kind of replace armband for the rotation of this wheel.
Yeah.
But we don't have that sensor at ETC now.
So
like
and I think that's
accelerator.
You are in a space where it's not clear what the best way to sense this is. And I think that's if you get the armbands to work, then go with the armbands. You have limited time to like make a final decision on that. Looking at this, I mean, I think the theming and the aesthetics, like it's funny to have a two-person wheelchair where I only control one wheel. Like it makes no sense. No one would ever build that. But it's funny. It causes like all these scenarios. Have you tried any of the fidgets?
We don't have any fidgets to detect the motion. Yeah, acceleration. And also there's the thing that right now all the fidgets we have, they are like with cables.
Yeah.
They need to connect to the computer, so it's gonna be inconvenient if we want to put
Yeah, no,
them
like
into
you have to
wheels.
run a lot of wires to make that happen.
Yeah.
No, you have a difficult sensing challenge here. Like in theory, like you could slap Vive trackers on these and use that 3D sensing to like get the rotation. They're wireless. But I think that's the other piece of this is what is the format for the festival that has a sense of it being robust? Like this is one situation where if it goes to jury and it feels like it's gonna fall apart and be unreliable, no matter how fun it is, it's probably gonna be like not a high priority for jury. And so I think having a sense of like how to make this work reliably is one of your challenges. And I would reach out to David Perda. He might be able to give some thought on what kind of sensing makes sense. And as a team, it's a question of, can you get the armbands to work? Like, can you get that, tune it into a place where it feels reliable? And it might be a case where you have the guests practice, you give them a gesture, and it's not so much do whatever you want, it's this is the way to do it. You give it a little bit of feedback, and that might just work. You might be able to like sort of train the guests to do the right thing. And then it's just a matter of building stuff that's, a little bit more reliable. Or you discover that like quickly that might not work, your sense of experience on this, and you need to move to something else. If you move to something else, then I think like talking to David Perda could be helpful, but it is you have a difficult thing to track and sense. But yeah, I'd be happy to help talk to that some more as we get moving. But fundamentally, the world is funny, it's fun. I think your simplicity and clarity is really good. So just finding a way to make it reliable, I think, is your main challenge. Okay. Good work.
Thank you.
All right, next up is Team 83. Team 83.
Hi guys, we're Team 83, and we have Yuki and Xingyi, our artist, and Jialu and James, our programmer, and I'm the sound designer of this team. So our game is basically about two ghosts collecting heads in a colorful environment, and then you can use the 3D rudder to do the movement. And there's a vibe tracker on the head, and you just lean forward to like use the head on your head to attack the other guys, and then steal heads for them.
Wait, so on the head?
Oh yeah. Oh, the band is right here. Wait. Oh, you got it? Cool. Cool.
All right, so like this? All right. And you're sure this is a real world? This isn't just an excuse to like put a tracker on my head.
I think it's the with hats one. I'm pretty sure we tried to delete the other one. Yeah, you should be able to just like go to your like resting state on the pad.
All right, feet on the rudder, tracker on the head, and a grid up here. Right one or wrong one?
Well, it's
Hmm?
kind of down now.
All right, wait, so do this. Wait, I'm gonna attack. Ah! Alright. Wait, what is about? I can't see what happens. I have to look away from the screen. Alright, now there's the hat in the water. What is? Ah! I'm definitely controlling the blue one. Woo! All right, and what does it look like when you attack?
So if you do this, your ghost will do the same thing,
Gotcha.
and you can, if you hit the person, if you collide with them with your stack of hats, that
All right.
will like be an attack hitbox, and you steal one hat.
Figured out why it's crashing.
Is it the live tracker?
Tracking headset.
Ah. Cool.
All right. Well, were the trackers working? Was I able to attack?
You can try again potentially, but so right
It-
now I believe it's so if they go like this, I believe is when it
Okay.
does it. So we can potentially change it so that it's a different condition because we did notice it looked like you were more like bowing like this, but keeping this kind of stationary. In which case, that's not what it's like.
Well, and playing it, and it's definitely a thing to notice is the positioning of this. I'm looking up no matter what because I'm sitting at a low angle to the screen. And oh, there we go. Oh, cool. And so actually, like looking at this, is there a direction? Like, can I only? How do I attack in a different direction?
We haven't used them in every direction yet.
Gotcha. Okay. All right. Okay.
It's just like phrases.
There might be
That's like the hard
So playing this, like the 3D rudder works really well. It's actually it's nice to have a control that my brain can sort of like separate out. Like feet are in charge of that, and I can sort of like move around. The theming of this is like really weird, but I like it. Like the stacking hats, like the beautiful thing about hat stacking is it really clearly shows state. When I get a hat, my stack grows bigger. I can see who's in the lead. There's a lot of like fun things about having that be the way you're showing what's going on. And the idea of attaching that to attacking is exciting too. Like, oh, the taller my stack, the better I'm at attacking. The place that is a challenge is asking me to lean forward is super awkward. And I love the idea of having, like, my feet are doing this one thing and my upper body's doing another thing. And I would wonder, like, given the challenge it was to sort of attack, it makes me wonder, how do you want the guests to play this? Because I think there's a balance question here that you are going to need to address, which is, if you let the person in the lead have more power, then it's going to make it hard for the person who's behind to like overcome that. And so the idea that the more hats I have, the more powerful I am, that's a dangerous balance to play with. And so in some sense, the fact that attacking is minimized because the interface is difficult is good because it diminishes the power of the person in the lead. But in another sense, it's bad because it's probably the main tool of the person who's behind to get ahead, like to sort of like finally catch up. And so I would want to think about how can you make the attacking a more powerful moment, and then how do you use that to achieve balance? Like for instance, I kind of expected the speed to get slower as you get more hats.
Yeah, that's our current plan. We didn't implement it for this build, but most of the plans are potentially one. Currently, if you attack over the water hitboxes, it will actually just like count as you touching the water, which I think our plan is to allow you to attack over water, giving some additional power to having a higher stack of hats. But the speed of both the attack action as well as your general movement speed would be dependent on your number of hats. So for example, the 1 speed would basically be at the spawn when you have 3 hats. So if you go to 0 hats, you're moving significantly faster. And whereas again, once I hit 14 hats, like my goal is to have it basically be crawling for the most part. And that would allow some sort of catch-up mechanisms.
Yeah, and so you're basically, like the two things to think about are like the fundamental controls. I think having the control be very physical is great. And you've got the rudder gives you strong foot controls. I think you want to think about it could really embrace the tilting, and it's a blind attack, right? Like if I tilt my head down, I can't look at the screen anymore. I would want the world to tell me that in a different way. Like the world right now does not really know, doesn't seem to acknowledge the fact that the attack is that difficult. And I'm not too sure exactly like how I would build it out so that it made it clear, but like you've got a challenge with direction control as well. I think what I would expect is the attack would be really powerful. Like I have to risk something really big, which is I can't see anymore, but it's a big attack, and I would expect sound effects. So I would expect really good audio feedback of what's happening, because I'm looking for 2 things when I'm attacking. 1, did it work at all? Did I tilt enough to like trigger the attack? Do I get feedback on the actual interface? And then 2, like, can I learn to use it and use it effectively? And the fact that I can't see the screen when I do it makes both of those super hard to get. So either you own it and you give me that feedback and you really make me understand and appreciate that even though I can't see the screen, I can still attack, or you move the attack to something else. And yeah, I could see, I've got arms free, I've got my upper body free. I could see like moving to just some other way of doing it. And then once you have that, I think there's a question of balance of how do you get an interest curve out of this? And I think the hats as a way of sort of balancing things naturally can work. Be careful, because if it gets too slow, it could get frustrating and boring. One thing that definitely felt is like, this was what, 90 seconds? It felt a little long. And part of that is the world doesn't change at all, right? And it's in progress. But you might want to think about, if you have 90 seconds, you might want to think in terms of the first 30, the second 30, and the last 30. Like, what are those phases and how does it change? And especially, how does it end? And what do you want the guests, like imagine like, there's probably like 3 main scenarios for the ending. There's one where it's really close, like they're equally matched and it's almost a tie. There's another one where someone is behind, but it's approachable, like they've got a chance. And there's the other one which is they're behind and it's like really far behind. How do you want the guests in that last moment to strategize? And that's a good way to think about the interest curve and the balance. Like, what do you want in those moments? Do you want them to just give up? Like, if they're so far behind, there's nothing they can do. Is there a crazy thing they can try to do? Like, do they have a risky move that could maybe pay off? And so I think thinking about the scenarios can help you think about how you want to iterate and make those parts of the level be different. But that's where I'd focus is the interface, like really owning it and understanding like how you want the guests to move, and then thinking about the interest curve and how that feeds into balance. But the weirdness of the hats and the ghosts and the theming and the foot control, like it's simple, it's effective, and so yeah, keep pushing on that. And I think you've got something that, especially if you can get the guests to feel like that silliness as they're sitting here, it can be really, really great. Cool.
Thank you.
Good work.
Thank you.
All right, next team is Team 85.
Yeah, which way do you want? Everyone this way? Yeah. So you want to put the trackers over there, rudders this way? How do we want to do this? It doesn't matter. Well, because people are going to run into each other, so figure out where people need to stand. Behind the desk.
Hi everyone, we are Team 85. I'm Melissa, and we have Robin, we two are the programmers of this team, and we have Shirley and Qisheng as our artist. No, I just don't know his English name. Okay, and we have Yuan as our sound designer, and our game is a 2D game that involves 4 players. The main player are 2 chicken. These are the main 2 players, and we want the audience to have some influence on the game, so the audience can control some of the like clouds and fire in the map. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, we can invite Dave as one of our chicken.
Wait, so I'm getting a whole one. I'm pulling a tracker.
Yeah.
All right.
One of the two can sit again. Thomas, come play. Eugene, come play.
Do I need any instructions?
It'll all be clear. Sure. All right, so I should be standing behind?
Yes.
Okay.
So the 3D rudder, it works, so you have to rotate it to move the things you're taking control of. And one of these, yeah, maybe I should wait for the game to start. Yeah, but for the players, you just have to wave your arms.
And when you push forward, it will make the skew.
Ooh.
You don't have.
All right.
The off-chart would be like, it's a 4-player game?
It's a 4-player game, yeah.
All right. Wait, where am I?
So for the fire, you have to flip really fast. Thomas, you have to. Yeah.
Wait, what am I trying to do?
Yeah, like this, and you will see if you do it really fast, you will start it.
No, not the rain. No, 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 no. Oh, no. That was not good. All right, am I trying to get to the nest? What am I trying to do?
Yeah, you're trying to get to the
man.
nest.
And the rain basically will slow you down, and the fire will like kill you instantly. And those are random tracks.
Oh, the snake.
Yeah, you have to, but it has a CD, so yeah, you have to wait.
Ah.
Yeah, that's a cooldown for like 10 seconds. Yeah, you cannot start it all the time.
Oh man.
Okay, ready? Let's make fire.
Oh. All right. So, what was the 3D rudder control
The
again?
3D rotor controls the fire at the bottom and the rain on the cloud on the top. So
Okay.
the cloud can like slow down the players, and the fire can instantly kill the players.
Okay, so was it controlling both where on the screen the fire was or anything else?
The position and to
And they can,
the ring and
yeah.
the fire to burn you.
Okay. Man, like that was really engaging. Like it was a lot going on. It took me a little while to figure out what was going on, but it's very reminiscent of the old arcade game Joust, which is like just little hops to fly. And so it turned out interesting because it's competitive between the two chickens, and then the guests with the 3D rudders. Are they on a team? Like, is there what? They're just controlling the other things.
Yeah, we just hope that in the festival the audience could join the game. They can just join the game to impact to players to play. Yeah.
Okay, so there's an idea here that like there's two main guests.
Yeah,
for
two
the
main
chickens, and then there's sort of like someone gets to be the fire and someone gets to be the rain.
Yeah.
And they can sort of like affect things. I guess to that end, how was it being the rain and the fire?
For the rain, I had to like turn my feet like really far to like reach the sides of the screen. And sometimes if I turn too much, then I can't like lean, I can't make it rain.
Okay.
So it was like a weird balance of like, how do I make myself comfortable enough so I can lean forward?
So there's like a control question of like, how do you just make the controls work?
I got it after a while.
Did it feel like you knew what you were supposed to do in the world, and did you want to do that?
In the beginning, I didn't know what I was, but then like I was looking at Thomas's movements and my movements, and I figured out who I was. And then I killed one person by making it rain, and I knew what to do.
Okay, and it's interesting because the rain just makes me slower and harder to fly, but the fire kills me.
Yeah.
Okay. So first off, like I said, the theming is cute. Like the idea of being chickens. I think the visuals. I think you use the whole like idea of this world really well. Chickens are rather defenseless, and they struggle to fly. And so the fact that there's a snake and an eagle and there's fire, like the fire's a little weird, but it all sort of makes sense in the idea of like we're struggling through these obstacles to do something. The beginning, having me flap to practice was really good. The fist bump made me think it was cooperative. Like that instantly put me in the mode of like, okay, it's chickens against everything else. And that wasn't the case. It was actually flying across the screen. And part of the thing that reinforced my thought that it was cooperative was I couldn't do anything about the other chicken. I can't interact, and I don't think I can interact, right? We fly through each other.
Yeah.
And so because of that, there was no way for me to stop the other chicken. Like it's just, we're basically trading eggs. So I get to the nest, I steal an egg, they get a nest, steal my egg, and there's nothing I can do to stop that. And so it didn't make sense that it was competitive because I didn't have agency over the competition. But it did make sense it would be cooperative because we're both working really hard to like do this thing. I just didn't know what that thing was. So I would, basically, you want to make the idea of competition clear. So just like in the introduction, like clarity of like who's who and the fact that they're competing. I think it's a question of what are we competing about? It's a little weird that we're stealing eggs. I didn't know for a little while that the nest was my goal, and it took me a while to see the eggs as a marker, and then it took me a while to notice that when I got to the nest, an egg from that nest disappeared and one appeared in my nest. And so there's a few levels of understanding of like what's going on that should be clearer. But like within all of that, like the controls like were working really well. It was nice just to have like a little bit of like flapping. I felt like I could get good at it. I felt like I could start to control it. It felt like a good amount of time to like learn that. And I would look a little bit of like how to make it change a little bit near the end. Like how does the world escalate? And I think I would look at the roles for the other guests. Can you give them a little bit some more purpose? Like, are you keeping track of their score? Like, this is the fire counting how many chickens they've burned. Is the rain counting how many times they've, made wet chickens? And even if it's not a part of like the overall success and failure, like who wins, it might be nice to just have that little bit of feedback to give them a target, like what they should do, and to give them feedback, a little bit of reward of like, hey, you did that well. You burned another chicken. And so having that just bring some more clarity to that role would be nice. But like I said, it was surprisingly fun to flap through. And I think if you look about the audience, you can like think about what they're seeing and what they're doing about it. Yeah.
I feel like I should call you out because by the end you weren't really flapping. You were kind of just like,
Oh yeah.
I don't know if that's.
Well, I think it's a question of like, where do you want the controls to be? If you want the guest to look like a chicken, then you need to do something differently. But in the balance between a button press and like a gesture, it felt pretty good. But right now you're just giving me a straight up a vibe tracker, right? Do you have a plan for what you want to do with this?
We can tie it to a wing, actually. Yes. We'll buy some like wings.
I think if you do that, it'll definitely change how I behave, right? And so giving the guest a bit of a costume will work really well. It will not be the first time I've had chicken wings strapped to my arms. And I think the last piece is for the audience watching the screen, giving them a better sense of what the state is. Because if they're going to be cheering for anything, right now it's kind of hard to look at it and be like, who's winning? You have to like look closely and count the eggs. And so I think that piece of like, what does winning mean and how do I see it? And what does it look like to be close will be the things to focus on. But like I said, basic mechanics, the basic theming, the basic idea of like bringing these different interfaces together is really fun. So just like think about that escalation, that clarity of what I'm doing and what my role is, and I think you're in really good shape.
Thank you.
Good work.
Thank you.
All right, next team is 86. Please come on up.
Hi, good afternoon. This is Team 86. And Jerry and Muru are our pretty good programmers. Constanza is our sound designers and also do a lot of excellent artwork. And Tao and I are our artist, and I also producer. And our game is collaboration game based on Kinect and the chat box. And our elevator pitch is that we contains two sets of players, and one set of player needs to go through the paths in the virtual world. At the same time, so another side of players need to build the virtual world simultaneously for the player. And we want to break the wall of real world and virtual world. So Dave, can we invite you to, yeah. And you can invite another lucky one to clap with you.
It's cooperative, so when,
Yeah.
you want to do it? All right.
Xbox, we have an Xbox controller.
Yeah.
All right, so I'm next.
Uh-huh.
You'll be next, and you will be using Expo.
So we need like.
Yeah.
We can't explain it.
Ooh. Oh, look at me. I'm here. Ooh. Oh man, watch out for that stuff.
You can
You
use
need
your
to
hands and block the laser.
block the laser for. Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah. No, you need to like block the laser.
nice. Ah!
That platform is invalid for
Something that's
so you need to help him to get through this.
you can also move his space to go like over like this side.
Can you bounce?
You can press the button.
Press the button to activate the spring. Button. Yeah.
Ah!
So this is an invalid.
Oh,
If you
I
press
see.
that one, you will be invalid.
Your hand.
I gotcha. I see it fading out.
不说。
The lasers are obviously difficult.
Hattie, you can move close to the screen. Yeah.
You can also use your hand.
You guys need to communicate too.
Yeah, you can
Does
communicate
work? Can you
to.
jump?
Yeah.
Ah! Oh man. All right, lasers.
Yeah.
Great.
Great.
Yeah,
Yeah, you can just, yeah. You have multiple ways to solve it.
Ah!
Oh no.
Can you jump?
No.
All right, all right, all right.
Oh.
It can detect multiple people, so if you want us to.
Ah!
No.
You can go higher.
Yeah, I'm thinking about it.
Jump to your arm. Yeah.
Not there.
Yeah, great. Press up.
Go higher.
All right, I got to get.
Put him. Yeah, and then.
On. Is there a save point anywhere?
And then you use your hands to.
You need to use a compass. Yeah.
Yay, go, 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 go. Yeah.
Oh, that's an accent. Yeah.
All right, we did it.
Good job.
Yeah, I mean, you guys are done, right?
Yeah, yeah. Pretty good
No,
job.
that was awesome. It was, I mean, there's obviously like some game feel and some tuning to be done, but fundamentally, it was engaging to try to figure that out. The lasers were more challenging than I think you want them to be. There's definitely some like just tuning of the level for naive guests, but like we got better, right? We were able to like try things. We at the very least, like when we died, it restarted really fast, and the feeling of like we can do this and like almost got it. One of the really important things is, for the most part, every time we failed, I felt like it was our fault. I had the ability to do better. Like I could have prevented that, or we could have like done that, and that gave me hope that we could get through it. And even though some of it was frustrating, it was never like I wanted to stop doing this. So like fundamentally, like just a really solid idea. The fact that you gave me a really simplified skeleton It was very responsive, like it's very clear. It was a little subtle, the fact that you fade me out around those platforms that are invalid. So I think there's things to be done about adding some more clarity. But in terms of pacing, in terms of like just overall what you want the guests to do, this is in a really solid spot. I would probably do things like have some checkpoints so that you sort of divide into stages, like you do this and then this and then this. And so you should know where guests like have to like really work hard to get past something. And you probably want that to be near a checkpoint. And then you have like where we get to a place where we feel really powerful. The variety of stuff, like I don't know if it was intentional, but the movement of like using both my arms felt really nice. And so if I'm thinking about interest curve, then what I would want is the beginning is like arm and just like simple stuff. And then I want to bring another arm in. And if you want to go crazy, like we're balancing everything. But overall, it worked really well. And I think I would mostly focus on like the little details of polish. Make the controls for the Xbox, it seemed like they're a little jumpy. I don't know, how did the feel of the controls work for you?
It was okay. Just like, I think the visual clarity would help. Like at first I thought that like face block thing was a platform I could go on, but like it actually makes the like now.
Yeah, and one thing you might consider is a clear language of what can I jump on. And right now, my skeleton is strongly pink and black. Nothing else is that. And so if I look at the world, it's hard to know that you can jump on my arm because the platforms are a very different visual style.
In fact, we have the character. In fact, we have character be designed as that it has the same visual language as the platforms, but now like the rigging and everything had some problems, so we didn't like put it in here.
Yeah. So I mean, basically, just pay attention to that language.
Yeah, that's something we already considered. Yeah.
The one other thing to watch out for is the camera movement is a little weird because it's controlled by the player moving, right? And there's moments where I stand still and the other guests can just move and the camera moves and we sort of like travel together. But then there's other moments where it's mostly still and I feel like I lift and pull them and my brain never knew how to predict that. So I'm absolute stationary with the whole screen, but there's a virtual camera that is controlling things. And we made it work. It's the one little piece that I just don't quite understand. And so I would watch that in playtesting because you're probably going to see a lot of stuff where the one guest is running and jumping. And because of that, like the camera move and does like adjust things. And so the fact that I'm relative and stationary to a different reference frame is a little bit weird. And like one way to go is zero camera control. Like you basically have levels that are in stages like you're here, and when you get to the end, then the whole camera shifts.
That's what he said.
Yeah.
Yeah, we actually consider 3 ways of control the camera. That's actually the main point of our concern. So we consider that we move the camera forcefully, that nobody can control it, neither A or B. The B is the big one, A is the small one.
Well, and what you could do is you could, if you wanted to like think about staging this, the beginning could be stationary camera, you get to the end and the whole camera shifts and we basically go screen to screen. And then you could have an exciting moment where like we get on like a train and the whole scene is moving and it's effectively a stationary camera, but now things are coming past us and we have to like lift and jump and coordinate. So you could kind of get the feel of a moving space, but preserve the logic of a fixed camera. And so stuff like that might be worth considering. Overall, I think you're in a great place. You know what you have. I think have a good design sense of like what's interesting. So it's going to be like make the beginning easier, get some checkpoints to like help pace the guests through it so they don't feel like they're just repeating a lot of stuff. And then, follow what you guys like and put cool things in. And this feels like it'd be both a fun world to play, but also a fun world to watch. So Good work.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, next up is Team 87. Please come on up.
Do we have other groups? So we have Makey user here. Like, do you have this cable?
Yeah, what kind of cable do you use? It's a weird kind of cable.
Do you need another cable?
Yeah, let's, you guys next.
Yeah, we'll have the team, I think, go first. You guys are
Yeah.
all right, we're gonna up this one.
Okay.
Okay, we will have Team 88 go first as we figure out some stuff.
Here, I'm gonna say we get up and I'm gonna
Yeah, we've seen those guys. Yeah, and then, yeah, it's a weird, bumpy kind of. Yeah, so just, yeah, if you want to make that.
The device is 3 and 4.
Check mic. Hello, hello, hello. We are Team 88. With me are our programmers, Caitlin and Yiming, and our artists, Nancy and Xiao Ying. Xiao Ying is also our producer, and I am the sound designer. Taking out the trash has never been more fun. Junkyard Heroes is a multiplayer experience that uses Vibe Tracker technology. As a hero of the junkyard, you must slice to the beat to defeat the evil trash monster.
All right, let's do it.
You want to join me, Dave?
I'm curious what slicing to the beat for trash means. We'll see.
Okay, good. So you'll stand a little bit in front of me, and yeah.
You got weapons.
Yeah. And safety straps. Safety first. But yeah, you'll be slicing to the trash, and then there'll be a point where it gets a little higher than right now. But that's when they get higher, we'll have to stand like I'll stand behind you, and we'll have to change sides.
Yeah.
just disconnect this entirely.
That's fine. Yeah, it's something we're not doing right now, but
We'll make it work.
yeah, we'll make it work. Wow. I promise you this, the music's awesome.
All right.
And then hopefully we're on the right side. That's the one thing that's kind of neat. But if we see a trail with our slashing, should be good.
Ooh.
If you hit start. Please. You don't have sound? Yeah. You just want to restart then? Yeah. There we go. All right, cool. Here we go.
Oh, wait.
There we go. There we go.
Oh, is it? I see. It's a height thing.
Yeah, there we go.
Whew.
All right, now.
So you stack again?
Yeah.
Oh, you're still up there. That's good. Oh. We won!
Yay.
All right. Oh man, so actually, just starting with the visuals, I really like the characters. It kind of like made me really interested to see what the world was going to be like. And so it's just a great thing to kick off with. I think that the visual styling, the idea of being kind of a badass raccoon, is pretty cool. And I was definitely starting to feel the connection between beat matching. One of the things that is, man, you guys are doing a lot with the tracker that's challenging. Because you're doing, what it seems you're doing is you give me it's relative to my character to some degree on the screen, like so to speak. And so when we stack, it changes where my weapon swings.
Yeah.
And so I'm trying to like mentally map the sword, the virtual sword I have, to what it means on the screen. And the thing that's really anchoring me is that avatar. And so what my brain keeps wanting to do is be like, okay, I'm this raccoon. And therefore, my sword is like near, like right here. And I think you really, really need some level of visual feedback of like, okay, yes, you are the raccoon and here's your sword. The trail like helps in the moment, but I think the connection to the avatar and the sword is going to be like a big next thing to put in there. And now, like, I mean, it feels like the avatars are somewhat like incomplete because of that. And like getting that piece connected will be important. The logic of I mean, so there's a little bit of like track-based stuff. Like there's like a left track and a right track, and a left character and a right character.
Yeah.
And so when I move to the right, the world knows that I've moved. And basically says, now I'm standing under the other character, lifting them up, and they can now hit the high stuff.
Yeah.
And then when they move to the left, they lift me up, and I can swing up high, right? Okay.
Yeah, basically right now we use the logic that when you stop the slashing, we track your position and to say you're in that trail. But it's kind of like too hard to track your position for that logic.
I think reflective of that challenge is it's hard to give me feedback because what would be I really sort of want is the idea that when I move around, my avatar moves with me. But I kind of get the idea that, well, you're tracking this as a sword too. So what's the difference between me moving and a sword swing? And how do you give me good continuous feedback on the sword and also let me move? And so the fact that you've overloaded the tracker with both movement and sword swinging makes it kind of hard to give me the feedback you want. Could you go to 4 trackers?
We can.
Like put a tracker on my body? And if you do that, then what happens is you can give me more feedback on my avatar. And you can also do a nice thing, which is you can know the relative position between my body and the sword. And you can help that be a little bit more constant. And I think that level of feedback will help a lot to what the world sort of says to me as a guest in the controls. And that's, like when you look at stuff like this, it's the feedback you give to the guests for how they understand the interface. That's one of the big pieces of getting it to feel right. And watching this, I think part of my reaction was, I was kind of, like you definitely have a Fruit Ninja style, like we got the slash, but I was kind of missing the sword. And I think I would want a visual representation of that on the screen for me.
Okay. Yeah, the idea was for like entire theming, like, so yeah, junkyard, and what we want is like the players that come in, and then basically they pick their weapon of choice. Like we're gonna have like hopefully different weapons. Maybe like, I mean, on screen we only have the 2D characters holding a plunger and a skeleton of a dead fish. The idea is like they come into the room, we open up a trash can for them, and then they pick out their weapon, and then hopefully, if all works out well, this will be like a jig that we can like insert into it, and then we can screw on the Vive tracker, and then they can use that.
Yeah, and I mean, I think that's a great idea to get to more excitement later on. But I would focus on the basics of what you have. And like basically get to, like the first question is, do you want asymmetrical weapons? Like where one guest has one weapon and the other guest has another weapon. That implies that you have to balance out and build out two different completely approaches to swinging this. I would go for symmetry first. I love the idea of like teaming up. It's definitely an awkward thing to understand because your metaphor doesn't, like the way we position ourselves doesn't actually match the idea of stacking.
So initially, like the idea that we might be bringing in the next week is that actually we're going to have 3 lanes, and in the middle lane there's going to be a large object that definitely shows off that there is a top and a bottom that you need to be able to hit. So we're hoping that'll kind of give more of the idea that you guys have to collaborate because it's bigger than anything else you've tried to fight.
Yeah, and I think the reason why it's gonna be an interesting challenge is if I think about as a guest what tools you've given me to work with. You've given me a sword to slash at things. It's hard for me to describe what the range of that is at the moment. So the world doesn't clearly define the limits of that. That's why I really want the sword visually. If you give me the avatar with a sword, then I will know with a lot more certainty that that's out of range. And so visually defining in range and out of range is a big part of this. For the most part, like you don't want me to think that I can move around to get things. You want me to be like, there's one spot and maybe another spot, and then you hit things within that. So bringing clarity to that will be really good. The idea of moving is a little weird for this world because for the most part, it's not a thing, right? I'm supposed to stay still and hit things that are coming at me. And so I would think carefully about what does it mean to move and what does the guest like expect around that? And you don't really have movement, you have stacking. But to stack, you actually move your physical body over and do a stack. So that's a kind of a complicated, weird interface. And I think the idea of middle is interesting. The challenge with middle is how do you communicate to the guest that they can get there and there are things in range? So I think if you're going to do movement, you might want to embrace it more. That there's actually some expectation that I can move my body and sort of in like a 2-meter space. Maybe I'm standing here and I hit things, I have to move over and hit another thing this way. And we have a shared space. And then there's a middle zone. We have to talk. Like, are you going to get that one? And there might be some level of coordination where there is analog range as opposed to discrete spots to be. And if you do that, then that makes movement a thing, right? It means it's a control that I'm thinking about and working with. It's also one that's closer to intuition, but it's a question for level design of like, is that something you want to bring into this and work with? And that's my first thought is I wanted that level of control because you're giving me that kind of analog control with the sword, and you gave me this avatar, and it sort of felt weird that no matter where I moved, the sword always stayed sort of in the weirdly same place. And the world like kind of has a feel like I should be able to reach for things, but it's not quite there. So I think feeling out that balance might be a thing to look at. Is there an idea for like a showdown with the boss? Like you have this kind of like crazy trash tentacle thing in the back.
Yeah, we were thinking about for the stacking is when you like deal with the boss. So like imagine that you would go to the middle and you stack and the boss will like come up to you, and that's when you do the like attack at the same time.
Yeah, and I think cooperative power move is a great thing to build to. It's really going to be like, how can you get something that the guest can just sort of know and understand without too much explanation? And it could be something about like hitting the thing at the same time. It could be like left and right. I think the stacking thematically and visually like it's kind of cool. I think it's just bridging the gap between what are the guests doing physically down here and what's happening up there, and how do you really get that to like feel intuitive and powerful? Because every time we sort of crossed over, it was hard for me to know exactly what was happening. And I think part of it was you took away my control. Like if I'm on the bottom, I'm not really doing something important at the moment. I'm just a piece of furniture almost. And so I think, yeah, that moment of like coming together and powering up is a great thing to aspire to. And I would like build from the controls and the structure you have.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, good work, guys.
All right, team 87. Let's try yours again.
Hi, we are Team 87. I am one of the programmers, Zibo, and here's our our producer is currently he's currently like quarantine. Yeah, and here's Am and Hagen, our two artists, and here's another programmer, Hui, and our game is like. There is a pickle farm where the farmer grows pickles. And one day, like one night, there is a raccoon trying to steal those pickles, and the farmer is trying to keep it away. So that's it. That's our background. And as a PvP experience, you will control either the raccoon or the farmer. Currently, this board is just temporary. Like, we want to have a real pickle setup.
And when you say real pickle, you mean real edible pickles? Real pickles, okay.
Yeah.
All right. There'll be a fun experiment for festival. Like, will guests feel comfortable using pickles?
So this is a tutorial scene where you, as a farmer, you want to catch the raccoon, and as a raccoon, you have to collect those pickles on the ground. Like when you close to the pickle, you press the button, yeah.
Gotcha.
And when the farmer, you find the raccoon, you press the button and you catch it. Here's just this is just a tutorial scene, so raccoon just yeah.
Oh, I have
There we go. All right.
So there's time limit for the raccoon, so you have to hurry up. Oh yeah. That's it. That's the farmer win situation. And once the raccoon collects enough pickles,
10 is enough. Three. Yay!
Okay, that's it. Thank you all.
All right, you want to talk a little bit about what you want this to be like for festival?
Yeah.
So just in general, like, obviously with buttons, we'd like to theme them a bit more than just have them be this. So, you know, maybe having perhaps a real pickle or like a clay pickle of some kind that you can press when you want to get the pickles.
Mhm.
So that's definitely one of our big goals for this week. So for that question, that's probably like the big thing is like trying to theme a bit more like the buttons to what you're doing so that it feels like you're not just pressing.
Okay, and I mean, you obviously have controls right now which are mimicking like WASD. And I will admit, I just wanted the keyboard. Like if you're gonna give me sort of like 4 keys that are approximating that shape, I want something that I can sort of do without looking at it. And so consider where you want the balance in controls to be intuitive and familiar, and sort of like awkward and new and different. And the moment of catching the raccoon, or I think eating a pickle, is definitely sort of like it was an unexpected challenge to like be ready and then have to push a button. And I think if you want that to make sense, I think one thing that's missing are like animations.
Yeah.
Like,
I was definitely planning to be in
Yeah.
yeah, so the feedback of, you don't just have to like surprise the raccoon, you actually have to like swing a net, or like there's some action. So I think it'll be important to like add an action to it. I would guess that as the raccoon, needing to push a button every time you eat a pickle is frustrating. And so I think about like in the same way, like if I'm the farmer and I'm catching the raccoon, making that more of an action. Thinking about the intuition of what the raccoon's role is, and generally, like, you've got pickles in a way that's like traditionally a collectible thing. Like if I'm thinking about just games in general, like I would expect to walk over a pickle and just pick it up. And so the controls I think are at odds with that intuition, and I would play with that. Like if you want it to be an actual intentional button press, then you'll need to probably explain it differently. Like for instance, if the raccoon has to eat the pickle in like 3 bites, like then it makes sense that I have to go click, 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 and like actually eat it quickly. And so making those interactions be something that matches the controls would be something to look at. And you're thinking about making that a real physical pickle?
Yeah.
Okay.
And for the festival, we want to make a real pickle themed experience, like having here we have separate split screen play experience.
Yeah.
And we want both players cannot see each other's screen.
I think that would be helpful. I will admit, I rarely looked at my own screen. I was mostly navigating based on Yuji's screen.
Yes, the goal would be to build somewhat of like a small wall between the 2 screens so that.
Yeah, I mean, if you're gonna give me a view like that, like know how the guests will use it. I expected from that you would want them to be separate. Now, if they're separate, then you need to think about the audience as well in this.
Yeah.
And so, what do you want the audience view to be?
So right now, we kind of would want it to be where when you walk in, you could see both, so the audience could behind see them playing against each other, but then when you like walk into play, the wall wouldn't go like, it would only go to a certain point, so if the audience is behind, they can kind of see
Okay,
them both
and what you
playing.
may be able to do is have the screen basically be a monitor for each of the guests, and then have TVs, even like a big TV that's split, if you could sort of like make that be an appropriate output. But I think thinking about audience in this is really important as well. And with that, I think the next thing is like, how do you make this all about pickles? Is sort of like one piece of this. Like the idea of like embracing it as a theme. Right now, the pickles aren't really pickles. They're green things that are in a garden. If I'm gonna say they're anything, they're probably cucumbers. And I think if you do want to really play up the idea of something like taken to an extreme, and sort of like being like all about pickles, then you need to push it even more. And It's right now it's in a space where you can iterate where it is and make it a bit more exciting, 2 players like fighting and duking out. But I don't think that that's going to get you to a really extreme pickle idea. And especially if the goal is to have physical pickles as be what you work with. And I would wonder if there's something you can. I think eating pickles would probably be a piece of this. I would kind of want sort of like escalation along that dimension.
Okay.
Like part of me, if there's a raccoon who's running around and eating a lot of pickles, I might want that to be part of the escalation. Like is the raccoon getting, I don't think pickles make raccoons like intoxicated, but I think you want something connected and representing the fact that the raccoon is eating almost all the pickles, and that's a big deal. It's important to the farmer for some reason, and it's important to the raccoon. And I think that gets to the idea of like what are the stakes of this world? What's success? And like as the farmer, like what does it mean to be losing pickles? And as the raccoon, what does it mean to be eating a lot of pickles? I think if you can frame that and like have that set up as like, okay, you're the raccoon. Here is your dream, right? To eat all the pickles. And the farmer's like, you need, these pickles are super important. Like what is going to happen when you lose them? So like getting those stakes set up so that as it's happening, instead of it just being you've eaten like 9 out of 10 pickles, I think you want a greater sense of what is that moment for the raccoon. Like, have we eaten so many pickles that we can't see straight and we're sort of like having trouble controlling? Have we eaten so many pickles that were really slow, but we need that last one? And what does that last one mean is a piece of it. Because right now, it feels more like it's close to like a Pac-Man style game of like, just gather the items and get to the number and then we're done. And I think if you really want to get into a world of pickles, you need to get us thinking in that mindset as guests. And then it'll make sense to there's pickles, and there's probably pickle theming, and there's probably like pickle things in the room and all that stuff. But I like I think the asymmetry is going to be a good way to then get those 2 motivations, but it will be a challenge to figure out what those are, because as exciting as pickles are on their own, like building them as a central conflict is, I think, a little bit of a thing to play around with and work through. And I would consider on the interface side, going to keyboards with a secondary physical interface. So one thing to think about is, like the nice about Makey Makey is it's basically a keyboard. So if you swapped out the keyboard controls with a keyboard and then made one button be something different, that might also be a good way to get some simplicity, but then also get a focus on a piece of this.
Okay.
Cool.
Thank you.
All right, good work.
Next up is Team 89.
Hi, we are Team 89. And Danny and I are the artists. Rick and Lena are the programmers, and Ray is the sound designer. And our game is gambling horse racing game.
How many guests do you want?
Oh, we have 4 guests, up to 4, yeah.
One more.
Unicorn, llama, carousel, seahorse.
Yes.
Do you have a horse theme?
You can select after the game starts.
All right. It's,
Press. Okay.
All right.
We can, from the first person. You can try to press different, but you need other hand to press on this.
oh,
No, this part.
this part. All right.
You can try other options. You can try. Look, you're not selected yet. You can
Okay.
try other options. And when you press this button, it means you click. You confirm. This is confirm. The part is confirmed.
And then it,
Yeah.
All right. What? Good. Move faster.
You can bet the same and one. Yeah, you can choose the same angle. Okay, remember your.
Yay!
Okay, round one, and then you can continue to choose different horse. Okay, that's from Dave. You are the first player.
All right.
You can choose different options. You can all choose the same way, actually.
All right.
There are 4 different roles.
So big again? I still want the unicorn.
Okay, last one. Last one.
All right. It's gonna come through.
Okay, so yeah, that's it.
That's
All
it.
right.
That's yeah, that's it.
do you guys want to talk about your plans for festival here?
Yeah, so for interim, we complete the basic like game, the process, the logic, and after interim, we are going to add more like items and that interactions make guests be able to like interact with the whole game process. Like you can try to we'll add something like the bananas and. Yeah, like some items to let the guests to affect the process of the game. So like make your choice like getting faster or making the other person's choice like getting slower, something like that.
Okay, so there's going to be more interactivity.
Yeah.
For this, what are the guests trying to do? Like as a guest, like what was my goal with this?
So basically, you'll see there is a scoreboard, and it actually depends on each round, the choice of your like from each round. So it doesn't mean you necessarily going to choose like the same option. The strategy is going to choose the best option, or in some cases, if the guests choose to like just make obstacles to other players. Of course, that is after interim.
You're keeping track of a score because one of the things that wasn't visible was like a score for the different guests.
Yeah.
So the goal is like the guests will have an idea of score.
Yeah.
And so there'll be 4 guests, and there'll be a set number of rounds, and the goal is by the end of the rounds to be the guest with the most points.
Yeah.
Is that right? Okay. I mean the visuals and the music. I mean I love the look of the characters. Although the alpaca, it looks like a person walking, like 2 people walking. It's super creepy. But you know what? Like the visuals of the characters and the personality, like you chose 4 different types of like horse-like creatures, and they're interesting. And so there's basic interest in what do they do, like how to think about them. That said, like there's a lot. Basically, the world doesn't bring a whole lot to the guests to like build that out. I was looking for ways to understand like the little girl with the unicorn, understand like the seahorse, like is there any meaning there? And right now it feels effectively random. Like it looks like each race, the character is just there's like some randomness about which one gets in the lead and which one wins, and that's sort of like about it. And so once we do the first choice, it's kind of interesting because I'm looking at like, do I like unicorns? Do I like merry-go-rounds? Do I like seahorses? And so I pick based on sort of knowing there's not much information. But the second choice is a lot less interesting because I've already thought through the characters and I'm looking for new information. And since it's the exact same circumstances, like nothing's changed. And so right now you've got an experience which is, the first thing is kind of interesting, but the next 3 are just a repeat of those things. I think the idea of interaction is good. It's gonna be, I think, a challenge to think about how to get the guests to like understand their role and understand what they can do with this, and then sort of like invest in that, because you've got a weird balance. On one side, you sort of have like placing bets and trying to get points by taking risks and like judging like, will this happen? And so there's definitely a mindset and sort of a gambling approach to things of like, okay, like this might happen, like go this idea of like small odds, big reward, right? And so when we think about gambling, often the choice is making those trade-offs between unlikely and likely choices. The fact that the choice right now has none of that makes it a not very interesting gambling choice, because there's no risk reward. It's like just randomly pick one of the 4 and see what you get. It's like, you know, if this was a betting game on a single die roll, it's like just pick a number and which one comes up, and that quickly becomes boring. So on the gambling side, I would wonder, if you really, really want this to feel like gambling, I think you need to come up with ways to present odds and interesting betting choices. But I think it's a stronger strategy to go with interactivity, to sort of like let people invest in a role and then try to make that role win. And I would wonder, does it make sense to even let me pick my role there? Because if you have 4 guests and 4 characters, why not have us just be assigned a character, and now we are competing and we're trying to win the most points through the sequence?
Yeah, so we have discussed about this. So we allow like different players to choose multiple, to choose the same option because they can have like multiple strategy. Like you can make a 2-player versus 2-player situation, and yeah, it depends on the investment of our interactions that we are going to develop. Yeah, so, and we're considering to add more like accident, like factors like the weather changes and how that would affect different options, yeah, something like that.
Well, and I think that's gonna be the important thing to think through, is so you're giving the guests the ability to change a choice here. And the question is, when and why do they change their choice? Right now, there's no reason to change. Like the only reason is just like to do it for the purpose of changing. And I mean, I like the idea of giving them different circumstances, but you have 4 guests.
Yeah.
And if the circumstances point too much to you should do this, then you might be guiding the decision down to one option. And so it's definitely like the thing you should be thinking about is strategy. So each guest here is going to have a strategy. And right now, there's no strategy. It's basically flip a coin, pick randomly. And I think that's the design things to work on is you're going to add interactivity. And I think that's really strong. And you can make the interactivity be the strategy. Like, I do this thing. And the other question then is choosing a character part of my strategy?
Okay.
And I'm skeptical that choosing a character will be a meaningful part of a strategy if it's focused on interactivity. Now, if it's focused on gambling and odds and like making a bet, then clearly like choosing a bet to make is a strategy. But those, like blending those two together might be difficult because if you want me to be invested in a role and consistency, then I kind of need to stick with a character and I'm gonna like try to win. If I have the ability like to switch to another one, you have to think hard about what does that mean for the guest and why am I switching? And is that a meaningful switch for the thing you're designing? And so I would encourage like really leveraging like the interest of the characters. I think it's really cute. I think you've got really evocative characters. And I think if you gave guests like at the beginning, like, hey, you're the alpaca, you're the seahorse, and there is some personality in my interaction with that, you would see guests being really invested. And then one thing you could do, if you really want the gambling, you can find a way to get the audience. Now they're the ones making the bets.
Yeah, that's what we initially considered, actually. We want to use clickers, but we don't know. Yeah.
Well, and that might be a thing to think about is there an easy way to do that? And you could do it with paper.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Like you could have a team member go around and like you hand out, like the audience members put like a token into like which one they think is going to win, or some way to like basically don't do it digitally. Just do it like in the moment, in the space. Think about how to facilitate that, and then think about what guests win. Like, I don't know where we're going to be with, probably going to be able to hand out food, but things people done in the past, like use the laser cutter to make little tokens that you win if you succeed. And I could see something where the guests are the ones who are the competitors, and the audience is kind of like making bets about who's going to win. And if you're like the winning audience member, then you get a little like laser cut token of like success.
Yeah, that could be interesting.
So I think you can get that. You don't need to build it digitally. Is the main point. But yeah, like I said, the big strength is the character design. The music is really cute too. So like play all that up and basically let me be the little girl with the unicorn and let the audience cheer me on. I think is like the place that this can go in a really fun way.
Okay.
All right?
Yeah.
Good work.
Our final team for the day is Team 90. Please come on up.
Hello everyone, we are
hello everyone, we are Team 90, and I'm the producer. My name is Yu Chang Wu, and Angela and Christy are our programmers, and Tongzhou and Yu Li are our artists, and I'm the sound designer. Yeah.
Ready? I'm doing that. All right. Where do you want me?
So our game is two-player collaborative. So you can sorry, you can either play with the two buttons there, or you can play on the dance pad. Your choice.
I guess dance pad.
Okay, do I stand here or there?
On that side.
Is I'm looking at these symbols, and one looks a lot like Pikachu, or am I just like reading into this, sort of like the ears and the lightning bolt?
We will see. Oh yeah.
We'll
so
see.
we need to start it with the mouse. So yeah, we'll go ahead and press play, and we can do the first one. Yep. Oh, Dave, you could also mash your
Oh, wait.
keys.
Is it
Oh,
doing
is
anything?
the other one not connected? Oh, there we go.
Move the squirrel around.
It's turning green, so hopefully it's okay. Oh, it's turning green here.
Wait, what's purple? What am I trying to do?
So you're trying to get the box into the purple square.
Oh. Okay, do you have to help me pull? Oh, wait. Did it pull?
Like, go back and go back two spaces and then leave a space between them.
Okay.
Yeah, and now go face it.
All right, what did that just do?
Yeah, maybe we should go pull it to the left. Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah, you can pull it both. Or yeah, you can push it.
gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay,
There's pulling and pushing. Just tell me when you want me to pull and push.
let's pull. I guess we want to go up and do this. Let's pull it, and then I can. Let's push. Okay, I see.
Pull and push as far as you want.
Let's just do a push. Where do I get this? Oh! Well, I guess we won.
That's the second game. I think we need to click the first game. I think it might not have clicked the right one.
Oh. Arrows. Pass the papers and whoa. There's Pikachu.
It's all been humans so far.
Where's that bottom? There it is. There. Oh, I'm on that one. Oops. All right.
And
those are the 2 mini games we have for now. So if you completed all of them, you'd be able to continue into like an ending scene. We don't have that yet, so that's all we have. Thank you.
All right. And so on the screen it had like F, I guess the letter keys. But it's basically just 2 keys and like left and right. Okay.
Yeah, we weren't.
This was portion, this is small.
Yeah, we weren't sure if we'd get like the buttons ready in time, so we had those as backup for keyboard controls.
Gotcha.
But yeah, otherwise there would be buttons for final.
And so you're thinking about doing a 3rd mini game. What's the idea for that one?
Yeah. So the first one we have is sort of like sort of reaction kind of based, and the second one's sort of puzzle. So the third one we want to do like sort of a memory mini game, which might be like showing the keys on the screen, having you memorize them and repeat them. Yeah.
Okay. And the idea is, but right now you give me a menu and I can sort of pick, it feels like. Is the idea to give the guest a specific sequence? Like how do you see the guests playing this through like in a festival experience?
Yeah, so we designed a pre-story, kind of a storyline for the whole game. So basically there are 2 characters and they're little animals and they're finding jobs and they go to a company, but the boss of the company say, oh, we only have 1 position. So the 2 little characters are kind of like, oh, we can show our collaborative skills, so you're gonna accept both of us. Yeah, so this is the main idea of the storyline, yeah.
So we're cooperating to become a single worker in some sense.
Yeah.
I think that fits in a really cute way. I loved in the second one how you made it like sort of an office space because it's going to fit much better with the idea of like doing this job practice. The box one had much more of a feel of a puzzle game. Like it was like, okay, like sort this out. And the theming was much more minimized. And it made me wonder, like, how are you going to get sort of like a continuous experience through this? And I think that's one thing to watch out for is it feels like just 3 disjoint games. And I love the idea of, hey, you were applying for this role and these are our tests. And how you get the guests to like go from test to test, I think will be a bit of a challenge. It did strike me that the pacing will be really important. Like how do you make it feel like just long enough so that it doesn't feel like it's the whole experience. And it also, you want to get the guests set up in the right place that going into it, they know how it fits like what they're trying to achieve. And so I think the star rating, although it's nice and simple and clear, it doesn't fit the theming as much as I'd like it to. I think what you're talking about more is I'm being tested in 3 ways, and I passed the test. So I think this is much closer to did I pass or not than did I get 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5 stars. And with that, I might then think about the activities and can you make them a bit more like, okay, here's the test. You need to do this. And pull it away from score and 5 out of 6 and stuff like that, and a bit more towards, okay, you're gonna have to sort 6 boxes in 1 minute. Ready, go. You're gonna have to do this thing. And I think if you get that, if you get a good lead in to get the guests sort of in the mindset of, okay, we're working together to try to get a job, and you remind us of that in the in-betweens, like, okay, you did this, you're now qualified in the warehouse work, but there's also the desk work. So let's go do the desk work. I think if you can get that story through there, it'll really help give the guest context for why am I doing this mini game, and it'll make the mini game more engaging because it's less about am I good at this game. It's a bit more like, okay, we're trying to do this bigger goal, and I think you can do that relatively simply, but I think that'll be important to pull these all together. It was definitely interesting using the DDR mat, and I think in some sense using a simplified control. I would wonder, is there a way to get me to feel more like the character through that? Why is one character limited to 2 buttons, and why is one character limited to their feet? Is there an explanation at the moment? Okay. You might want to think about, so for instance, things that come to mind. If I'm a bird, then my wings probably aren't good for activities, but my feet might be good at things. if I'm a creature that is more oriented around like 2 buttons, I don't know exactly what that is, but you might think about, like you got a cute story here, right? 2 characters, 2 animals want to get a job. And they're trying to convince someone that together they make one really good employee. On some level, that's really cute and heartwarming. Another level, that's kind of sad and scary that like the job market's pushing them to like force their way into like one job. But think about, from a character perspective, what their strengths are and how the interfaces like bring that to life, and then how together like they complement each other and they are successful in that way. And like the interfaces right now don't tell that story. And I think with some cleverness around like why these 2 characters and why these limitations, you might be able to get there. You might need to change this interface from button presses to something else. Like what is my control? Like if I'm an animal, is it a tail thing? Is it a paw thing? Like what is this? And I think you might need to think about the dance pad, like how is it foot oriented? But with that, plus the through line of the story, I think then you can make these mini games feel less like mini games and more like a complete arc through this really lovely little idea of like 2 animals getting a job. But I will say that actually, what was the other side of the screen? I was so focused on the arrows. What was the sorting happening over here?
Like you do on your dance mat is make the printer work. So when the printer like print out some of the pictures with the face of both human and animals, so another character needs to sort like whether it's animal.
Okay,
or
it's basically like left or right, which one goes where. Okay, and I think that's a last piece of like the theming is you've got the interface, connecting the interface to the actions on the screen. It's a little weird that I'm doing dance moves for a printer. It makes sense to do dance moves to move around a grid. So I think that's the last lens of this is how do the interfaces connect to the activities, connect to the characters. And I don't think it has to be perfect, but it might be worth, as you look at them, are there ways to tweak it and make it fit a little bit better? Ooh. Good work.
Wait, one quick question. Is it okay to use Pikachu in our game?
And I guess just the reason you shouldn't use Pikachu is you don't want all of the story baggage that Pikachu comes with.
Right.
So Pikachu doesn't speak, says only Pikachu.
Pika Pika.
Is electricity focused.
Right.
And suddenly defines the world as Pokemon exists in the world.
Right.
I would probably expect Pikachu's friend to be a Pokemon as well. If I were like to just grab one, I would probably expect Eevee to show up. But I think that's the reason you pick Pikachu because you want what Pikachu brings, and you avoid Pikachu because you don't want Pikachu brings.
Got it.
Don't worry, there's no element of like copyright. Like we're in a school, like I will defend fair use for educational purposes. So I wouldn't worry about that stuff.
Cool. Awesome. Thank you.
Right. Congratulations on your last interim, possibly forever. There is one more week of BBW work. We are very close to the end. So enjoy it, savor it. And with that, this Thursday is going to be an office hour day. So I encourage you to come by, schedule time. I encourage you to play test. I'm happy to meet in a playtesting capacity. So if you want to come and meet in the office and like talk, we can do that. But if you want to meet in the platform room and play your world, let's do that too. So just when you sign up for office hours, let me know where you want to meet. But like I said, this week is about building out your worlds, iterating, feeling out where it's fun, exciting, looking at where you find polish. Everything is going in a very exciting direction. I think everyone's embracing festival in great ways. So it's really just how do you make those final choices in the last week? Where do you focus? Where do you cut scope? Where do you like think about guest experience versus like the big plans you had? But overall, everything's looking really, really good. So it's putting pressure on the festival to live up to what you're building. with that, Yuji, Ryan, anything from TAs to talk about?
Hello, hello, hello. How's it going?